Thank you, Mrs. Swanson's class. Mrs. Yetter. Oh, where is she? Oh, she's hiding. There she is. There she is. Mrs. Yetter suggested that I write notes to the classes that have done pledges, so I will go back and write them, and I'll write to them too, because we really do appreciate starting with students.
I counted as your note, so that's one less.
And
It's not the same as the class. It's not the same as getting a note on paper. Okay, I will open it up for the public to comment on any of the agenda items. Okay, I don't see anybody that wants to speak. The treasurer's report for November 2022 is available in the business office. We will begin with the consent agenda.
Resolved to approve consent agenda items 2 through 9 as presented to the board of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? Mrs. Bellina will give us a rundown.
Tonight's consent agenda includes approval of minutes from the previous meeting, CSE, CPSE placements, approving the amended substitute listing for the school year, approving unpaid time for various staff members, approving additional hours for various staff members, approving an overnight trip for 2 wrestlers, approving donations from the Putnam Valley PTA, which is going to be used towards the cost of students attending the 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip, Putnam Valley Education Foundation grants, which totaled $8,526.25, which was provided to different teachers for different programs, including the Homework Booster Lab, the Washington, D.C. trip, Innovation Lab materials at the elementary school, OT, counselor, and special ed sensory room items at the elementary school, lunch bunch at the high school, kindergarten welcome kits at the elementary school, 3rd grade Stanford Nature Museum, summer reading challenges, counseling student support at the high school, as well as money towards the high school's math department's IB resources. We're also approving an unpaid leave of absence for a staff member.
Thank you. I would just like to comment, although we don't usually comment on consent agendas, but both the PTA money and the Education Foundation do tremendous work for our students and our district, and we are grateful for everything that they do. And we encourage anybody to join them that hasn't. I also, by the way, got at the listening hour tonight, the PTSA is looking for members, so you could probably find that on the website too. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. Presentations, please. We're going to start with our first one. Dr. Luff, do you want to?
So I'd like to begin by welcoming Sheriff McConville up. Sheriff McConville has been very active with schools regarding school safety since taking office, and this presentation to the board is another tool that the Sheriff's Department is considering using to 3D map our buildings and to provide that information available to officers in real time if they were to arrive on scene for any sort of incident. So welcome, Sheriff. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent, Madam President, members of the Board of Education, educators in the audience, and fellow community residents. I'm here tonight to talk to you specifically about a couple of programs we want to implement for the Putnam Valley Central School District at absolutely no charge to the school district. The first one is what is known as 3D mapping. So you'll see we're handing out a flyer on what the device looks like. We bring it into this room and we're able to map every square centimeter of this room. Windows, their measurements, doorways, electrical outlets, the mini windows that you have, the desks and tables, and we build a 3D replica of this room that we're able to spin, twist, and recreate to look at different angles. How does that help us? Well, we do the whole school, the entire school, every building within your campuses, so that we have that should we ever have to respond here, and it'll give us a true north orientation. So, for instance, if you have a room 318, our 3D mapping will tell us immediately what room 318 is and the pathways to it, allowing emergency responders to quickly access that area in the most direct and efficient manner. It would help us in a number of different situations. As the superintendent knows, last May we did a threat assessment policy review, and we've changed the way that we interact with our emergency response team and doing the drills here within the confines of the school. We've expanded it to the exterior of the school so that we're prepping for a larger presence without interfering with the school operations. The Faro 3D mapping allows us to practice that without interrupting school operations, and the MOA that I have calls for the mapping to be done at your convenience, on your terms, again, at no expense to the school. It will allow emergency responders the ability to respond effectively, and we give you a copy, an encrypted copy of that 3D mapping. Should you ever decide to do any construction or change the layout or the design of a room, you can do it first on the program to see how it'll work and how it will function in your day-to-day operations. Should you ever do any change to the facility, to either one room or large scale, we come back in and we map it again. Our personnel are trained in that. We got a grant for that money to purchase this device. We hope to have it within a few short weeks. It was approved. I was in Albany for the last few days, as I informed the superintendent, conferencing and meeting with a number of different entities and people and senators and assemblymen. GASNY now has it and is scheduled to approve it very soon, so we'll be able to purchase it. We'll provide the yearly upgrades to the system, and we'll train the personnel. But we really want to come here, map out every square inch of your school in order to enhance school safety. It'll help you, it'll help us, and we think that that's a benefit for both parties. And then my second MOA that I have is for urgent access to your CCTV system via web access, as well as your card access program. You have lockdown on card control. And the superintendent and I have spoken the entire summer, we know that our ID cards will not work, but we want to put bypasses in. We'll use some of the ARPA money that the county exec last year funded the ARPA to purchase enough devices so that we can do a bypass. So I'm gonna pass these here again. You know, my only request is I get all the originals back. My county attorney wants all the originals, which seems to be a standard request. And then just very quickly, working with the superintendent and other superintendents in the county, we've created a robust notification system. Just recently, we sent out a bunch of notices advising of a whole gamut of issues that may or may not affect this school district, but certainly will affect others. This way, the superintendent, his transportation manager, the facility director is aware of it, so it may impact any operations or any business the school or its personnel have throughout Putnam County. And we're happy to partner with you. You've been a great partner. We hope that you will review this, take it to your attorney, ask your attorney to review it, and as quickly as possible get it back to us so we can begin planning for the next phase of operations with this mapping. Okay, any questions on it? Yes, sir.
Sheriff, you said all emergency services. What would that include, that these 3D images would be shared with?
Fire and EMS, and when I say shared with them, once we show up to a scene and the command post is established, we'll be able to provide that system there. We're not going to distribute it.
That was my concern. Thank you, Sheriff.
And we'll have access, if we get the MOA on your CCTV system, through our fixed command post at one of two locations, so we can begin managing the situation as we're responding.
Outstanding.
Okay?
Thank you.
Just to confirm, all district facilities, correct?
Any and every facility. We think it benefits you, and in the process it benefits us, because there may be a building or a facility that we don't have intimate knowledge of, and we'd like to have that as not only in order to respond, but as we train for certain scenarios, because we can recreate those without coming physically on site and apply it to this 3D mapping program.
And I had the same privacy concerns that Sam had, so,
Yes.
thank you.
And the language on privacy is contained within both documents. You'll see it relates to FERPA, HIPAA, and the appropriate sections.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
So I just want to take this opportunity to, again, thank you for your engagement with the school districts. I know since taking office, we've met several times. I know that that notification system was actually the outcome of a conversation that happened, I believe, at our first meeting with yourself and district superintendents asking for a notification system. And then that was something you guys were able to quickly build and put into effect. And it's actually been extremely helpful for myself, for sure. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for coming out and speaking with us and for your continued involvement and sort of passion around school safety. And I know we're looking at door jar sensors and all these other ways in which we can better improve our protocols here in school. So just wanted to publicly thank you.
Well, thank you, Superintendent. It's a pleasure to work with you and the members of your administration and the entire school district. So thank you very much.
Sheriff, before you go, I have another question on specifics on this system. The Putnam Valley would be, I guess, the second or third in terms of size of all the county school districts. We only have, 3 buildings in those that are, we don't have multiple elementary schools, et cetera. Do you have a sense for how long it would take to map a district or map this district specifically?
Well, as I said, and I just want to reiterate it, we will map any of your buildings at your convenience, nights, weekends. We're going to accommodate you. My sense is it would take a couple of weekends, 8-hour shifts to do that. We want to be as thorough as possible. This system works in conjunction with drone equipment that we have, which will allow us to expedite some of the process, but it will take some time. So the goal here is to get the MOAs in place as we're getting approval and the equipment is getting shipped to us. So upon receipt, we can begin the process and start implementation.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to begin our budget presentations. Oh,
So our first budget presentation this evening will be our technology budget presentation. So I'd like to invite up Mr. Michael Lee.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, finally. I had to reboot the whole thing, shut it down, start it, but it's here now. Good.
Hello. So I'm Mike Lee, Director of Technology, and this is the technology budget presentation. Now, if you recall, last time when I was up here, that was in November, we spoke about the programs that we're involved with. So this one is very budget focused. It's, the sort of like what we want to spend our money on. So if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. See? So you've always got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to know where you're going. So in November, this is just to kind of review. These are the things that we discussed. We talked about the interactive displays and how you could access all your Google Drive information through the swipe of a card. We also talked about the Chromebooks at the middle school and now rolled out to the elementary school. We also spoke about the transportation system that we're using now. It's called Traversa, and that allows us to route from anywhere now. Like we could do that at home, for example, if we're not able to get in. And it's also a lot more efficient at doing that bus routing. We discussed the many new AV systems that we put into the district. We've got a new system down at the field. We've got a new system, the middle school and the elementary school and the wellness center. And pretty soon there's going to be a new system in here as well to better facilitate professional development and meetings that aren't necessarily appropriate for the PAC. We talked about the in-house training capabilities. Our staff is extremely good at being able to support both professionally and technically all the systems that we have here to offer. We also highlighted the high school color wars, and this is actually something that Catherine Schutz and Dan Mahoney right here, they're going to be presenting at the International Society for Technology and Education Conference in Philadelphia in June. And they will be discussing color wars and how they work with the technology and the students and what goes into that entire production. And then finally, we also discussed iPads as assistive devices. Now, I shared this slide in November. I don't necessarily have to go into this slide specifically right now because it's actually kind of later on in the presentation, but these are the things that are just over the horizon. So who cares about infrastructure?
Sam?
Yes.
Sam cares about infrastructure. Okay. Here's the thing. Good infrastructure does these following things, right? It supports and enhances the educational experience for students. It also enables distance learning and remote access and allows collaboration for everybody in the district. But what else does it do? It also secures our sensitive information, protects against data breaches, and supports a comprehensive security plan, right? So you think of all the cameras that the sheriff was talking about, all of those, and the card access systems, all of that also is on top, is sitting on the network, right? So you've got your educationally focused items, but then you also have all of these data and security items as well. So here's our replacement plan and timeline. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why do I have a picture of an iPhone up there? Does anyone know what model iPhone that is? This is an iPhone 5 from 9 years ago. Does anyone in the audience, is anyone using an iPhone 5 by any chance? You've got an iPhone 5?
I think so.
All right, you win the turkey today. You got the free turkey. Got it in my car. Okay, so iPhone 5, keep that in mind, 9 years ago. The devices that we plan to replace are anywhere, will be, by the time the replacement plan kicks in, will be anywhere between 8 to 10 years old, right? So talking about the need to upgrade, if you're not using an iPhone 5, right, you upgrade your phone, we likewise need to also kind of stay up with the times and upgrade and stay supported by the companies. Okay, so here's our replacement timeline for 2023. This spring, we would like to replace our backup storage systems. So these are the systems that basically hold all of our backups. And then in the summertime, we would like to replace our primary storage, our MFDs, which are copiers and printers. Does anyone know what MFDs stand for?
Multifunctional device.
Yes, that's right. The first word is not mother. Okay. So, and then finally, the third item is HS cafeteria AV system. And what that will do, like I said, is Dan will no longer need to roll out this little projector, and we won't have these speakers on the floor. We will have basically a one touch, a one button. You press it, the system's live, the system's active. So anyone, board members, or anyone who wants to use it for professional development can come in and take advantage of this space, just like they can currently do at the middle school and at the elementary school.
I personally think Dan has grown a liking to the
maybe he likes
projector
running
cart.
stuff out. Yeah.
Did you sign off on this, Dan?
I don't have to get a gym membership now.
That's how you work out, pushing the cart around?
So in 2024-25, we're looking at replacing our network cores. And so last time I explained the network core is sort of like that thing that Obi-Wan Kenobi shut off in the Death Star. But I understand maybe not everyone's into Star Wars, so think of a bicycle wheel, and then think of the hub in the middle where all the spokes kind of connect to, right? So the network cores would be sort of like the hub, right in the middle of that wheel, where everything connects, right? So that is what we'll be replacing. All the traffic goes through those, right? So the better your core, sort of like the better your network. Then in 2025 to 26 will be our wireless replacement. So all of the wireless access points that you see, those will be swapped out for the latest access points. Now, the funds we've got to utilize to pay for this stuff, 2025, and the reason why I picked 2025 is because the E-rate Category 2 funds happen to expire in 2025, but then they get refreshed in 2026. So then we could have 2 years of like back-to-back spending as opposed to, say, like spending it in 2024, and then you have a gap year, and then you could spend it in 2026, right? So those support projects up to $273,000, and then we also have the remainder of our Smart Schools bond, which is $234,357. This is our typical overview of expenses. Our typical expenses don't change, so this slide has existed as it has for a long time. These are our typical program expenses. These are our stuff expenses, printers, copier supplies. You know, all these are just the supplies we need to get through the year. Again, these are our typical like summer projects. We've got infrastructure items, laptops and Chromebooks. The allocation we still are working out. And then our typical BOCES IPA for $250,000. We do that every year to enable the equipment that we purchase over the summer. And the budget-to-budget impact would be around $56,000, and that's steady. That's a steady year-over-year impact. And our aid ratio is 65%. So anything we get through BOCES, we get 65% of that back. Our staffing hasn't changed since 2018-19, and this is what it looks like. And essentially, this is the team that makes it happen. And that's really it. Any questions?
Thank you, Michael. I have, this is probably going to be addressed in Dave's presentation, but I'm assuming you both work together. Mm-hmm. You just talked about updated AV. Is that independent of this, the local live being turned into Huddle eventually?
The AV upgrades are independent of that.
But all those systems rely, anything new coming out of sports,
right,
or athletics,
right,
need to tie into.
Yeah. Well, the current system that's in place, those are obviously connected to our network. So whatever gets swapped out will be likewise just similarly connected. So, yep.
Michael, for next year, 23-24, can you talk to us about your base budget, which is what you're existing now? How much above the base budget are you looking for?
Right. So this shouldn't. The beauty about spreading out or phasing in the updates or these replacements is that budget to budget, it shouldn't represent any increased cost. Because remember, we take advantage of the BOCES IPA,
right,
which is a planned expenditure every summer anyway.
Okay.
And also
so it's constant, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
Except for salary, obviously.
Right, as you say, there's certainly a couple cost change, right? There's contractual increases amongst the staff members.
Right, understood, yeah.
And then a big driving force of the entire technology budget is our RFS through the BOCES and the services we get through them. So obviously, with inflation and everything else, there's been some escalatory costs there, but they've done their best to limit that as well. So I would say the costs within our control are very much static year over year. as Mike was explaining, we spread out those projects, and we spend sort of the same amount of money every year, just identify a different target area. But the overall expenses through BOCES, and a lot of that is based upon need, how often we access certain services. So it's really a hard number to predict moving forward. But that's one of the variables that are outside of our control that are a driving factor of the technology budget.
Good, thank you.
Michael, what do you see as kind of our biggest challenge moving forward, technology-wise?
What's our biggest challenge technology-wise?
I mean, we've looked out as far as funding
Right.
coming from outside sources that
Right.
help with kind of the incremental and bigger step projects. What do you see as kind of a challenge on any level now? AI becomes a big deal. Security continues to be a big deal. Just wondering what
Right.
some of your thoughts on the bumpy road ahead, if there's a bumpy road ahead.
Looking forward at the road ahead, I think our current team, and especially, the support we also get through BOCES, we seem to be able to handle those sorts of threats pretty well. I think the biggest challenge would be, how are we going to purchase our next round of replacements, right? So we've got these smart schools funds that we could purchase now, and that's $230-something thousand that we could just spend like that, right? It would be interesting, or it would be a good exercise to now start to plan for, when we have to purchase in another 10 years, right? So that, I think, because technology is not getting any cheaper. I mean, look at the cost of eggs, right?
Oh, please.
So like, who could have planned for that like 5 years ago? The cost of eggs,
That's old
right?
technology.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, these costs keep going up. So then, definitely would be a more of a challenge in 10 years than it would be now. So again, I think we're really good at keeping up and keeping ahead of where the technology currently is in education and staying current with the threats and keeping everything secure. But a large part of that is also buying the right equipment. So in 10 years, like, how are we also going to make that leap?
Michael, is the state going to assist us on the new computer-based testing for their testing programs? Are they giving us any money to move into that system?
I'm not sure if they're giving us any money, but we are certainly signed up to do the field testing in a couple of months. And
that was the warning for the original Smart Bond money, was we're giving you this money and you're signing off that you'll be capable of administering the computer-based
So that's what
assessments.
that's,
The initial money, remember, because computer-based assessments were supposed to be implemented years ago. So that initial money, the Smart Bond money, was earmarked to get districts up to speed to
Okay.
ensure they had the infrastructure to support the needs of computer-based testing.
Our
Because it-
district was already there.
So we were already there,
So we
so
used
we
the money
sure,
for other
I
infrastructure.
understand. So that takes place this year? Is it this year that they're doing everything?
We have some grades that are piloting, just to
Okay.
get a sense as to what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
But next school year was really the first year. A couple grades, was it 5th and 8th grade, or the first two? We'll start taking computer-based assessments,
Okay.
and then it goes 2 more grades, 2 more grades.
I'm very curious to see how that goes. I
As
really
are
am.
we. I wish it would never come. I wanted to answer Joe's question in a slightly different way. And while I agree wholeheartedly with Michael in terms of the infrastructure and keeping an eye on the future and ensuring that we have all the tools in place to ensure that students are successful, I think the greatest challenge with technology, maybe for the first time since technology was initially implemented, is going to more directly impact our academic program. And this is all sort of new to me, but the release of AI bots that could write papers and websites that can solve complex equations and just sort of access to that type of information that students have, I think it's going to challenge our academic program in ways that technology never has. Technology has always been seen through an academic lens is something that we could use to better our pedagogy, something we could use to further engage our students, right? Something we could use to improve our learning. And now I think we're going to start entering a phase where technology as a tool is going to infringe upon our academic program and what we traditionally do. And we've been playing around a little bit with that bot, whatever the thing is that writes the papers, and it's pretty amazing. Right? We're like 5-paragraph essay on what it's like growing up in Putnam Valley. And there it goes. Paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, citing names of places and essentially explaining my childhood using a bot on a computer in about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's how long it took to generate it. So I think it's an interesting time where I think technology is going to begin to challenge some of the things that we were traditionally do in the classroom, and we're going to have to think creatively how to continue to teach students and bypass all that AI stuff that's going on.
And when they become sentient beings, and the Terminator comes around, that's the bigger challenge, right?
So we're on a fast path to that. Computers are smarter than the humans.
I'd like to hear what the students think of the challenges of new technology.
None of them are going to admit to using the AI box. So.
Just an experiment like you.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely think it's a concern that is a real concern. It's just the concern of how do you address it at this time. It's just because sometimes, like, especially when we think about like the equations that can be solved online in 3 seconds compared to having to work it out for 10 minutes on a test, it's just like I feel like students don't consider it such a huge deal because sometimes in my head it's just like, why do I need to know this if the computer can do it, and if the computer can do it now, who's to say that I'm going to have to do it in my future, and who's to say that, yeah, I might have a test on it today, but tomorrow I'm never going to get tested on it again, and I'll be able to just use my technology the way I need to. But I do think it's a hard topic, and it's going to take a long time to find a solution for the essay writing, for the equation solving, but I do think it's just important to prioritize informing the students and letting the students know that it's important to just get your work done and have it's like almost like the mental grit to get things done yourself, because for this, especially the things like writing is such an essential skill at this time of our lives, and we're going to use it for a really long time in the future. College papers, theses, like whatever occupation you're really in, truly. So I think it's just important to stress the importance of just academic truthfulness, for the word I'm forgetting, but thank you, honesty and integrity, and just really find a way to show our students in our district that it's important to get your own work done, and not just because, yes, it's what's right, but you need to be able to do it yourself.
Yeah, I think it's just important that we are teaching children actively that like you can't become reliant on it, and yes, like if you have it now it's nice, but like to learn everything behind it is like what the important part is, because you're not like there might be a situation where you don't have that, and then like you're just it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, with technology I think it's important to educate students on the real-life applications it has, but also to educate them where it isn't applicable. Like, you can't rely on AI and self-writing programs and then, take a written test and then, you have to write it yourself. And like Simone said, academic honesty must be pressed and, pushed, because with a well-educated staff and teaching staff, they could tell when you're able, what writing is yours and what isn't. Not all of us write like scholars. So it's important to educate that it's not an alibi, but there are places when you can use it and it can be applicable, but there needs to be a distinguish between what's right and what's wrong with everything. And I think, especially in this school, we could adapt to that very well.
Thank you.
So I do want to take this moment to commend our teachers and administrators, because I really think that Putnam Valley is on the forefront of the type of learning that will be necessary, right? So if the focus on problem solving and inquiry-based learning, right, those are the aspects we see embedded as the core of our IB diploma and the middle years program and much of the work that we do at the elementary school. And it's the shift away from content memorization, right, which is what the computer could easily replace. The computer can't replace the problem-solving skills that we're preparing students with and teaching students to think through an inquiry-based model are not things that can be replaced with a computer like content memorization can. And I do know that we've made tremendous strides in that direction over the past several years, which I think will ultimately greatly benefit our students as they continue into college and career with those skills that students in other schools may not necessarily be learning if they're still really focused on content memorization.
Yeah, and I think also, like, especially in my English class, I just know, like, right now, for example, like, my teacher just let us know that for, like, the rest of the year, we're going to be doing a lot of in-class writing. And the whole year, we've been doing just online essays and stuff like that. But I think it's really great that our teachers are able to kind of accommodate both, like, the best of both worlds, really. And we've been doing a great job balancing between writing our essays in class and typing our essays at home, especially knowing with the IB exams coming up. I think that we're really well prepared for the fact that, okay, in the workforce, it's a lot of stuff on your laptop, stuff on your computer, not as much written stuff. We're also accommodating the fact that for such a high level courses and testing, like, we're still acknowledging the fact that we need to write stuff down and just be able to sit down and take a test, because a lot of kids can't do that nowadays. Truthfully, I have a hard time with it myself, sitting down, writing for an extended period of time. I think our teachers do a really good job of that and, like, slowly easing us into it. So I appreciate that from them.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael, because I know that we wouldn't even be having these discussions if you weren't dealing with the equipment part. So.
I do have one quick question.
Sure.
These upgrades, projects, will they be completed in-house or by BOCES, or would you have to have external consultants perform the activities?
As part of the purchase price, the vendors usually provide their professional services. So they just come in and plop them in place. And then after that, then the maintenance is up to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I think our technology presentation took an interesting tangent there.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I do want to thank you for your leadership, and certainly those who work with you, I think, do a tremendous job across the district and provide services that in many districts represent several different individuals to be able to support both the technical and the instructional side, like those individuals in our buildings do. So again, thank you for all you do, and your staff is tremendous and a very valuable asset to this district. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so our second budget presentation this evening will be our athletics, physical education, and health services. And I'd like to invite up Mr. David Kantrowitz.
Hello, everybody. I feel like it's been a really long time since we all saw each other 2 weeks ago.
Spread out your meetings.
All right, so today we're going to go over the budget for 2023-24 for athletics, PE, and health services. We've managed to stay remarkably stable despite, inflation and the changes that have been occurring in the global economy. As far as the department staff and the overview go, the staffing has stayed identical to the setup that we had last year. There's one administrator, myself, my senior office assistant. We have 8 instructional staff spread out through the district, 2 PE teachers in each building, one full-time PE health teacher that splits between the middle school and the high school, and a .8 health teacher here at the high school. We have 4 school nurses, which is no change. We have 1 full-time nurse in each building and 1 floating nurse that goes where they're needed, or if we have an emergency or somebody's out, they provide coverage for us. We've also had no change in the total number of coaches that we have. We have 63 coaches. We have 21 in the fall, 22 in the winter, and 20 in the spring. Our athletic offerings in the fall have remained the same as they did last year, with cheerleading, cross-country, field hockey, football, boys soccer, girls swim, and volleyball. In the winter, we did have one addition. We joined a merger, a multi-school merger in Westchester County for girls ice hockey, because we did have some students that were interested in that. Other than that, our offerings are still the same, with boys and girls basketball, cheerleading, gymnastics, boys ice hockey, boys swim, wrestling, and indoor track. The primary components of the budget that we've set up include transportation. A major portion of it goes to stipends for our coaching, our trainers, our support staff, our state, section, conference, and BOCES fees and dues, as well as the officials for all of our athletic contests, materials and supplies, which include jerseys, athletic equipment, medical equipment for our athletic trainer, and anything that we may need to run the department. And like we spoke about briefly in Mike's presentation, our live streaming services. So looking at how we formed and developed our budget, we built it on two main principles of safety and sustainability. We wanted to ensure that all of our students have adequate and safe athletic equipment for practices and games, whether that be the most updated common helmets that we have, whether it's padding for pole vault mats, whatever it may be. We want to make sure everything we have is reliable and protects our students. We create a sustainable cycle of replacing broken, old, and outdated equipment, whether it's cycling our jerseys every 4 years through the various levels to extend their lifespan, or it's setting dates that we know we're going to replace certain types of equipment again, such as helmets that can no longer be certified for their safety, or pads that have reached the end of their usable life. We create and maintain a variety of athletic programs at various levels for students. From modified to varsity, we want to make sure that we always have the supplies and infrastructure needed to run those programs in continuity with student interest. Obviously, if we don't have students interested in that program, we'll try to deviate those funds somewhere where they are interested, but we want to make sure that we're never in a situation where we can't run a program for lack of planning and lack of budgetary ability. And last, we want to eliminate unnecessary costs to the district and community, whether it's through redundancies in purchasing or excessive costs that could be eliminated by other means. Looking ahead to next year, our anticipated costs where we're seeing increases are contractually through our coaching stipends, salary and step increases through the teacher's contract, and the addition of one merged team. That has very limited impact on our budget, the merged team, because we have such a small cohort of students participating. And of course, equipment and supplies across the board, whether it's technology, whether it's athletics, school supplies, everything's been going up in price. We've been trying to find ways to budget accordingly to make sure that we can have the supplies that we need at a reasonable cost to the district. To do so, we've worked to try to save money for the district in any way possible. The first was in transportation. We require our students who participate on merged teams that are not hosted here at Putnam Valley, that don't occur on our campus. That transportation is on the families and the student athletes. They have to find a way to get to those locations to either meet the other team, meet their bus, or go to the contest, which saves us on bus runs, bus routes, and things like that. And we've reduced return transportation for fall and spring modified teams, meaning some of our modified teams practice at the elementary school or the town park, both of which are considered district home fields. So rather than busing those student athletes back here to the high school, back here to the middle school, and keeping a driver on site, we've made those the pickup locations for when the game is over. So it reduced the redundancy of bringing kids back here to be picked up just somewhere else in the district. For event streaming and coverage, this was a big saving for us this year. We're in the process of transitioning from Local Live to Huddle. Huddle is a very similar program that provides additional resources for our coaches live on the sidelines, such as instant replay, video editing. It allows our student athletes to create highlight reels for them, and it all will do it from our new cameras that we put in versus Local Live, which was strictly streaming. You can watch it at home. If I wanted to get the film off of that, I have to download the 2 hours of footage, and if Simone wanted to make a volleyball video, she'd have to go in and find exactly what she's looking for. This new camera system that we're implementing has the same streaming capabilities, but makes all those other aspects that our student athletes and coaches want much easier to accomplish. For materials and supplies, the number one, cost-saving measure that we have is our equipment manager, Megan Smithison, who's also our athletic trainer. She's helped tremendously in reducing redundancies in purchasing and managing our inventory to make sure that we're purchasing our supplies at appropriate levels and replenishing what we truly need. We've secured large cost equipment under long-term warranties, such as the new scoreboards that we put up in the middle school to replace our old failing ones. Those, I think, both have 12-year warranties, so should anything go wrong, those costs do not come to the district. In our weight room, we've implemented a preventative maintenance cycle. We have a company come in every summer to check, lubricate, refurbish anything that may be damaged, hopefully catching it while it's new and still able to be fixed relatively inexpensively, versus waiting for it to build up and one of our treadmill belts to rip or break or whatever may happen. Like I mentioned before, we've started jersey cycling to extend the life of our jerseys through the modified programs. We always start each jersey at varsity. They get a new jersey. Varsities come down to JV. JV goes to modified. And we've formulated the cycle so that will happen every 4 years. So every 4 years, a new set of jerseys will come down. So no team ends up wearing a jersey from 2002. Ones that they might not even make anymore, similar to that iPhone 5. And last but not least, across the board, we always work with our state contracted vendors, which results in about a 30% savings on whatever equipment or supplies that we're purchasing, jerseys and so forth. Another big area of savings that we've had has been assessing our needs for chaperones and staffing. We've assessed chaperone need by sport, by season, to appropriately staff our events to make sure that we are covered, we have the supervision we need, but we're not in excess on any of those activities. We've implemented a universal no practice days on Sundays to reduce the need for custodial overtime and building supervision. And we've heavily recruited our new teachers, our younger staff who have, a wealth of college athletic experience to come in and be our new coaches, which helps us temporarily decrease the cost of coaches' stipends. They come in on a lower step than maybe some senior coaches who have been here in the past, and that saves us money, in the now. Another way we've helped to kind of offset the rising costs at all levels has been our booster clubs and our fundraising and revenue we've made from special events. We host 2 different tournaments in the winter, a wrestling tournament and a cheer tournament, which are tremendous fundraisers for those 2 sports, especially cheerleading, which you wouldn't know it by looking at the supplies I have. It's incredibly expensive, and this event helps really offset a lot of those costs. We have our alumni games that help us raise funds for our basketball teams, for travel, for jerseys, for warm-ups, whatever it may be. Most of our teams now have some form of concessions at their games and events, which help lead to their booster club revenue, helping provide for senior nights, special recognition opportunities for the student athletes. And the Superstore, which we began last year, in the first year of its implementation, we raised just over $4,000 for our athletic teams, and all of that goes directly to the teams and to their booster clubs and to their booster bank accounts to be spent as they need it, whether it's for flowers, balloons, whatever it may be, homecoming games. That's kind of how we're funding that. It's also, the Superstore is being used to fund this year our Athletic Hall of Fame and our Senior Awards Night that we'll have for the first time in June. So just in conclusion, year over year, we are almost identical to where we were last year in the athletic budget. Less than a few $1,000s higher than we were, and the primary reason for that, again, is the cost of just the raw materials that we have to purchase, but our savings through technology and our savings through our coaching stipend help to significantly offset what would have been a very high increase in cost. And that's it. I'll take any questions.
Can you just real quickly go back to the chaperone slide? So I just want to bring something up to the board that Dave and I have briefly discussed, but it's something that I've been thinking about for some time, is considering establishing what we would call essentially like a head chaperone duty, and to have a point person who is sort of responsible for what's happening at that point in time. And I think there's a couple of reasons why, and going into the spring season, I think this is an important conversation, right? So for the spring season, we have At any one time, we have students at the elementary school, we have students in the town park, and we have students all over this campus here. And with one athletic director, you can't possibly have somebody in all of those locations at any one time, right? So if there's a disruptive parent at the town park or a student seriously injured at the elementary school, right, we don't necessarily have, we have a coach who's responsible for the other students that are there, but we don't necessarily have a point person who's responsible for contacting our athletic trainer, calling an ambulance, talking to the parents, ensuring the officials have everything they need. So I think it's a piece of the puzzle that we're missing, and I know it's something that many districts are moving towards, to identify key point people to be responsible for those events. The other piece is these games and practices go on Monday through Saturday, over holidays, on breaks. For anyone who's coached a varsity sport, can tell you when you figure out the stipend, it's about 50 cents an hour. It's a tremendous time investment multiplied by all the sports that are going on simultaneously. So another role in which that head chaperone could serve is, if Dave is taking a day off to be with his family or a doctor's appointment or something like that, is to have another line of defense, someone to step in and be able to assume the head responsibilities for that day. And I think it's something that we haven't worked out all the details, which is why it's not in the budget and exactly how much that person would make and if there'd be interest for it. But I think it's a conversation that's worth continuing, to ensure that we have layers of support for our athletic program. And I think what traditionally happens, if Dave's not there, then Megan becomes sort of the impromptu site supervisor, but she's also responsible for the health and wellness of all those students there. And it's really an impossible task to do both at the same time. And I'm not saying that David doesn't do a tremendous job and he's not always on site doing all these things, but I think looking forward, creating another level of support for our athletic program is something that we should seriously consider.
Are you looking within the existing staff, or this would be an outside position? Or?
No. I would certainly look for our existing staff. We would offer it similar to a stipend. We have a rate of pay for a chaperone, which obviously doesn't carry the same responsibilities. So we can either create a higher rate of pay for a head chaperone. We can create a seasonal stipend, which lots of districts do. So you get a stipend that carries you through the season. I think our own coaches would be tremendous assets for this. So if you coach in the fall, but maybe you don't coach a winter sport, if you're the site supervisor or the head chaperone in the winter, that's an off season for you. But you're familiar with all of our protocols and practices in
Would
place.
some of the responsibilities that would fall to this individual, would it be scheduling the other chaperones? Do you envision that?
I think right now our athletic department does that. I would say in absence of Dave, if Dave was out for a long term, that would be something where I would certainly lean on them for.
Yeah.
But I think that the protocols we have in place for that right now are working pretty well.
Oh, okay.
But I think even as simple as tonight, so there was a wrestling match downstairs in the wellness center, there was basketball practice in the gym, but there was a modified basketball game next door, right? So Dave and Megan were both here, but next door, there's a coach and parents, but that's it, right? There's no other supervision next door, but if we had another layer of support, you would have another body who can go next door, and just to ensure that everything is working the way it's supposed to. And just have a sort of a authority figure at all sites, or at least as much as possible, to help ensure that everything goes safely. Parent misbehavior at sporting events is not something that's decreasing nationwide.
I know.
So I think having another person there with some authority, and they control the keys, they make sure everything's open, they make sure everything's locked at the end, is something that we should seriously consider.
Yep.
And I think that, just to add on that, the major catalyst for this has really been the official shortage throughout the state. We ended up a few times in the fall having soccer games with no officials. So we had our coach who's looking after our team, the other coach is looking after their team, but no one who was singularly on the field to maintain order, which led to, parents being upset, spectators being upset. And, when we have a football game here and a girls' modified soccer game, 2 miles away, it's impossible, really for me to be in both places to solve both problems. And our football games, as everyone knows, that's our big ticket event, hundreds and hundreds of people here. So it's really just a way to almost be in two places at once. and I think it would be a big help for everybody.
Good.
I have a couple questions. So in terms of the merger sports that we have in the district, and you mentioned that they have to have their own transportation to those events and from those events. I know we have certain policies surrounding like carpooling in the district. Is there an exception for those merger teams, or are they, or is that kind of, is that standard still the same for the merger teams where carpooling is an issue, tricky issue?
So one of the difficult things with the merged teams is that in the eyes of Section 1, our student athletes who participate on those teams are essentially for that purpose considered members of that school. So we would allow those students whatever means of transportation they needed to get there. We don't dictate it or oversee it. If it's a parent taking them, if it's the student driving themselves down the road to Lakeland themselves, that would be up to the family and the student athlete.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one more question. Could you just elaborate a little bit more of what like the Hall of Fame and the senior awards kind of entail at the end of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited for it. The Varsity Athletic Award Night is going to honor all of our student athletes who have achieved scholar athlete status, all section, all state, all league, individual team awards like a team MVP and a team rising star, and really just give us the opportunity to celebrate all of the success that each team may have had, section finalist, section champion, league champion, as a time for all of us to be together, because all of our teams separate in their own right at their award dinners that they have, but we've never had the opportunity to put everybody in the same room and get the recognition from all of our peers, all of our coaches, all of our teachers, and really show how proud we are of the student athletes that come out of Putnam Valley. Along with that, you know, we've had tremendous athletes and phenomenal teams over the past 20 years that Putnam Valley High School has been here, and it's due time that we recognize them and honor them and immortalize them in the school culture. And I think that starting the Hall of Fame and having the Hall of Fame committee is the first step to doing so, and really just providing a venue to celebrate the success of all of our athletes, past and present, in the district. And I believe the date, don't quote me, I don't remember off the top of my head, is Monday, June 13th or June 12th. That will be celebrating that here over in the PAC.
And then I have a question, just like making the switch from Local Live to Huddle, like will Huddle still be as accessible as Local Live was?
So Huddle is actually more accessible. That's why we're making that switch. With Local Live, the only way for any given person to access it is to go onto our website, click the link, and watch it. After the game, I have the ability to go in on the back end and download the film and send it to a coach. With Huddle, that film will automatically be broken down play by play and put into the team's Huddle account. So where you might be on the Huddle account for girls soccer, that film will instantly be there as soon as it happens, as soon as it's recorded live in the game. It also gives us the opportunity for the coach to access that material immediately on the spot with an iPhone or a tablet from the sideline to review on a timeout, hey, look, this last play, this is what happens, this is what we need to change, and be able to show you the footage of what just took place.
Monday, June 12th.
What was that?
Monday, June 12th.
Monday, June 12th for the Hall of Fame and Varsity Award Ceremony.
And with the Huddle, so with Local Live, I know like family members, even if like they're far away or even if they're close by, they do like depend on the Local Live to watch the game like live from home or wherever they are. Does Huddle offer that same option for families to watch the games live?
Yes, it'll be, as far as the family is concerned, it'll be the same process. You'll be coming to our website, click Stream Our Games Live, and then it's just going to bring you to a different website to watch it rather than the Local Live portal.
Great, thank you.
Okay, just one more question. Both when you talked about equipment and transportation, if a student can't afford it, can they not play this? Like, because I know that there have to be some, I'm trying to think when my daughter and son both played, there were things that they had to buy for themselves. Do we have any kind of a system for students who maybe couldn't afford it and wouldn't have a chance to play because of that?
So we provide just about everything that the students need for each sport. The only thing that we really don't supply are personal items that you would go home with. The first example that I can think of is girls' volleyball shorts. It's an intimate item. We typically don't want to take those back and have another child wear them, so those students would purchase them on their own. Should there be a situation where a member of the team couldn't afford those, we would lean on the Booster Club to try to help offset that cost for them.
All right, okay.
The same for ice hockey?
So ice hockey, a lot of the material is personal material, and we don't actually have an ice hockey team. So they're on an out-of-district team, so that cost would fall on them.
Thank you.
Dave, where do the ice hockey teams, what rink do they practice at?
Oh, it's many. The ice time varies from time of day, from location, and it's impossible to tell any year where they're going to play most of their time. I think this year we're primarily at Brewster, but it could be anywhere with ice hockey.
And do we have to contribute to the ice time since some of our kids are playing?
We do pay a fee that's commensurate with the number of students that we have on the team. So I believe we have 5 students this year on the team out of 20-something that are there, so we pay 5/20, so 1/4 of what it would be.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Good presentation.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Excellent.
Okay, we're going to discuss now the senior citizen exemption program.
Yeah. So our final presentation this evening revolves around the senior citizen tax exemption program. So I know that Jill put together a couple of slides. This is not something that appears on the agenda. In fact, it requires a public referendum, but it's something that we want to certainly start to have a conversation with the board. And we're well aware that there's other exemptions that will likely emerge for discussion amongst the board as well. But this is just the first one we're starting with. So
right. So we
turn it over to
kind
you,
of
Jill.
started out today or tonight or this week thinking that tonight would be the night that we would make a decision, or the board would make a decision on this. But we found out late today was that we need to hold a hearing. So all the school districts in Putnam County are discussing these exemptions, and this exemption in particular. We have many that are applied to school taxes, that are offered to different groups. But anyway, so we do have to have a hearing.
I just want to clarify, I said public referendum, and that is incorrect. It's a public hearing. Sorry.
Oh, did I
We're not voting on it. No, I said the wrong thing.
Oh, you said it.
We will not be voting on it. This is a public hearing.
No, we're not voting on it. The board will be making a decision as to what they think is the right thing to do, but after holding a hearing at the next board meeting, before the next board meeting, right, prior to it. So we have to give 5 days notice for that hearing. So that will happen just prior to the meeting. And then people have a chance to come to that hearing and talk about it if they have questions. So I'll tell you what I know about it as of right now. The county has already adopted the levels, the new levels, as far as the county. So this affects county tax, town tax, and school tax. The decision that has to be made by the board only affects the school tax, but I just want you to know that the aged all exemption, which is a senior citizen exemption, affects all 3 of those taxes, not just the school. So what we do is usually coordinate, and they all follow suit. So if the town of Putnam Valley and the school district and the county in Putnam have a certain level, they usually try to keep it all the same so that everyone is afforded the same benefit. Okay. So the age-at-all exemption allows seniors to apply for an exemption based on their income. The current income limit right now is $29,000 with a sliding scale, and totally phases out at $37,400. That means that if your income level is $29,000, you get the highest percentage off, which is 50%. Off your assessed value, not off of your tax bill. I mean, it kind of is the same thing because your taxable value, but the reason I'm going to say it's not exactly the same in all cases is because you may have other types of exemptions also on your assessment, right? So you might have STAR, you might have a disability, you might have a veterans exemption. there are other types of things that could be applied to your bill. So it's 50%, and they're all taken in a certain order. Don't ask me what the order is right now because I don't have it in my mind. But if you have a $29,000 income, you're afforded a 50% reduction in your assessment, and it goes down to 5%, which would be, you'd have to be earning $37,400 or less in order to be, or more to be, 37.4. I don't know, there's a range. You'll see it, I'll get to it. So this threshold was phased in over a 3-year period, the last time it was phased in, between '07 and '09, because it went up, from what it was at that time, and they phased it in over 3 years. It requires action by the board, like I said, by resolution. There'll be a hearing in February, maybe prior to February. I'm not sure exactly when we'll have it. We'll probably have it the night of the board meeting on the 9th. And then another note is that this particular exemption is not reimbursed by the state like STAR is. So right now, any exemption that people get, senior citizens or non-seniors get STAR credits on their bill, or they get a reduction in their income tax, that's reimbursed to the school district if it's a credit that we give on your bill. So that money comes back to the district in the form of state aid. This exemption, the age at all exemption, does not. The burden shifts to the remaining taxpayers, the other residents, like all other exemptions do. So right now, this is the scale. Okay, so $29,000 or less is a 50% reduction, and there explains each range there. And then, so in year one, what they're proposing, in order to make this a gradual impact to taxpayers across the district, raising that lowest threshold from $29,000 to $40,000, and that would become the 50%. The amount that's eligible for the 50% reduction, and so forth. So that's the scale there. And then in year two, okay, those scales are wrong. In year two, it would have been $45,000, and then in year three, $50,000. For some reason, those scales were not updated. So here it is at the bottom here. Okay, so it's impossible for me to quantify what that shift would be from the senior citizens to the other residents, the non-seniors. We can try to make a guess at it based on maybe some Social Security information that we get or median incomes. I'm going to try to do some work on that before our next meeting. By then, we also might know what other school districts in our county are doing so that we can, take a look at, and try to be at least at the same level that they are. We do know that seniors can lose their current percent of exemption if we don't do anything with this, because in the last couple of years with inflation and COVID, the Social Security amounts that seniors are getting have increased. So what that's doing is it's increasing their income. So now if we don't increase the level of income and the percent that goes along with it, they could lose and be on a different level, or lose it altogether. So there are other types of exemptions available that can change, and they have an impact going forward for veterans and disabled. There's all other types of exemptions. There are discussions, I won't, this is not the only discussion that's going on out there, the senior citizen one. It is the one that's on, let's say, everyone's table right now, but I'm sure that once we start talking about these things, other types of exemption conversations are going to come up. I wasn't, I'm not looking to bring that up, but I know I've been asked. I've been asked by people, it's going to happen. So at the time that we have the hearing, you have two options. We can either take no action, and that means that the exemptions stay the way they are. There's reason to make change if you want to. Option two would be to phase it in to the levels. You can phase it in all at once. You can phase it in over time. We can choose that path. These levels are not levels that the county has made up or that someone just came up randomly. The governor has said these are the levels you can go to. So it's written into law, real property tax law. Okay, so the first year being 2023, which is the current year, that could be in effect for this September. And again, the limit, 40,000, would give you the 50% reduction, and then the following year, 45,000, and the following year, 50,000. And again, in 2007 to 2009 is when they phased in the last change. And that's all I have, unless you have more to add to the conversation, with questions, or you want to think about them before the hearing.
I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
How about our Cortland Manor and Mayapack, especially Cortland Manor residents?
Right, so Westchester County is also doing these things as well. Cortland, again, you mean that part of our school district? Oh yeah, this would affect we would make that change for all of the residents. We can do that for the Westchester residents as well. We wouldn't be limited to Putnam, yeah.
How is it determined, what if there's two individuals on the deed for a house? Do they both have to be considered the definition of a senior?
So, well, it's all about whose name is on the deed, right? So if you're on the deed with another person, those people, it all depends on how they file their income tax too. So if two names are on the deed, both of those people have to turn in their income tax returns along with whatever backup and documentation that's required for the application. If it's just one person's name on the deed and that person is 65 or older, that's all they have to turn in. What I'm not sure of is if both people have to be 65 in order to qualify for the exemption. I believe if they're both on the deed and then they both have to be 65. Otherwise, they wouldn't qualify. It's much like Medicare, same situation.
And the assessor would be the
I'm not the
point
determining,
person to make that decision based on whatever the regulation.
Right, and there's a lot of regulations. They're all written out. They're on the New York State, NY. I'll have all the website information, tax.gov. None of this is mandatory for schools, towns, or counties to adopt. So it's all about paying attention to what your town and your school is doing. What I do want to mention is the reason we're making a decision about this now is because the taxable status date is March 1st. That means that's when assessments get set by the assessor's office. Sometime in May, they send out letters, they tell you what your assessments are. But in order for them to implement, the assessors to implement the exemptions, they need to get the word out in February so that people know to apply for it by March 1st. Just because you have a senior exemption already doesn't mean that it would be automatic, because obviously it's based on new levels of income, so you have to turn in paperwork. Maybe you don't have it and you want to get in on it, or maybe you're in on it and you need to change whatever they have as a file for your application. So that's why it's important for us to make a decision in February, or as soon as possible.
Considering that Social Security increased by over 8% this year, that's going to drive a lot of people out of this program.
Or to a different level of the program.
Probably, yeah, but it was major. It was a major increase.
Yes.
This is, to me, a no-brainer. I think, yes, we, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, but this is equitable, it's fair, and we have a great deal of seniors in this town that would be in need of this assistance. So I definitely would like to see this in place.
And you mentioned that in February, you're going to do some work between now and February and
Yes.
determine, what would be the potential volume of residents or the potential
So I
budget
probably
impact?
won't be able to give you the volume. I can tell you what the volume is presently. I can tell you probably what, I think, or, and give it a good, educated guess at that point. I may be able to tap into how many seniors we have in town. Maybe I can find somewhere where I can look up information regarding, what those, those incomes are for seniors. There's all kinds of statistics out there that people can get a hold of now that they couldn't in the past. I'm going to try really hard to get as much information as I can. So we would know what the impact is. And I think the gradual implementation of this is important because, and that's just my opinion, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're allowing huge change in exemptions for a certain group of people when there are other groups of people who have exemptions, and we may want to take a look at those in the future as well. So,
Thank you, Joe.
And about 15% of the population in Putnam Valley is 65 plus.
I was trying to work your app on my phone and didn't work.
But how many of them qualify for exemption?
Quite a few that will be above this level, that will
Yeah.
not.
Right.
I think we
this
have
assistance.
about
It's quite a bit.
75 people currently tapping into this.
Right.
Seeing age at all exemption, not the senior star, that's another whole.
I don't believe it will change all that much. Again, simply, considering inflation and everything else, those who are on it will still be on it because the rate's going up. And I don't think that Social Security, if we implement this, will knock them out of the program. So I would anticipate having about the same amount of individuals, but I agree with you 100%. It's got to be spread over the 3 years. We can't do this as a one shot. It would really jar the other taxpayers.
Well, and it would depend on how many came on or whatnot. And I think that just doing it gradually is a more, it's important to make sure that we don't do it all at once, that's all.
I agree.
And
Jill,
we
I
gotta make sure-
updated the charts if you want to go back and show them.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You just
Sorry about
refresh.
that.
Sorry, Jill. You
Just
had,
hit refresh.
No, they're not
Just hit
fixed.
refresh.
Oh, I thought you said you fixed the charts.
I did, just hit refresh.
Oh,
It has-
okay. Wait, I have to escape, right?
Jill, you mentioned it's not reimbursed by the state, like STAR. Do you
There you
think
go.
that it
They're
might
already updated.
change in the future?
It's already updated, Joe.
Oh, okay.
You could go back to the slideshow.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Jeanette,
it's
hold
done.
on. There we go. That's year 2 and year 3. Sorry.
Yeah, you had mentioned that it's not reimbursed by the state, like STAR is. Do you think
Right.
it might change in the future?
No.
Has there been any discussion on that?
No,
Wishful
I
thinking?
don't, I wouldn't,
I mean, it's just like the veterans exemption that
Veterans,
doesn't get
firemen.
reimbursed.
yeah. There are many, many types of exemptions available to people, and the STAR is the only one that's reimbursable.
I mean, this is the definition of a win-win for the state, because they get to say it's allowable and they get to set the limits for it, but it costs them $0 in order to implement it. And then local municipalities decide on whether or not to offer it, so the state shares no burden as to whether or not it's being offered within an individual community, because it's really local discretion, so.
What I can tell you is that if we do implement it, it can be taken, not that we would take it away, but I'm saying it is something that we can change. Once we put it in place, doesn't mean we have to leave it in place. So that is that's a plus as far as, if times change and things change, we can make changes. Every year we can renew these things, so, or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wonder, I mean, I guess we have to do some estimates to see what the shift of burden is. I know that's going to be just a really broad estimate, but that's important. And plus, working with other school districts' information and within our town and county. I mean, if the county puts it in place and our town puts it in place, there's absolutely no way that we wouldn't put it in place. But nobody can, I don't think anybody's going to be able to wait for anybody, and it doesn't seem to make sense for a whole lot of waiting other than going through the process of public
Most school
hearing.
districts are talking about it this week and next week. It's all a matter of whether, they're having the hearing or not, and then they can go forward with it.
There was a question about hearing or not hearing, correct?
There is no question now about having
Right.
that hearing. So I really, wanted to make sure that we did it the right way. I got conflicting information yesterday, so I was thinking we were going to have to do it by tonight. And in all honesty, I was trying to help out the assessor. They have to get out notifications, and they want to start early February because the application is due March 1st. So, you know, plus it's senior citizens, you know, you try to help them out as much as you can, and, you know, we don't just have the 65-year-olds applying for it, we have the 75, the 85, you know, so there's people there that may not, you know, be able to get together what they need to right away. So I did talk with Putnam County about the application process. She said the deadline is March 1st. They do have some leniency. You hand in your application. If you're missing something, they're not going to be like, oh, you can't come back and give it to us if you forgot. But that is, if they're not in by March 1st, you're not getting it. So that is important.
Which does not preclude you from the next year being able to apply to get in. It's not as though this is a deadline it's only a deadline for that current year. The next year they would be able to apply.
Yes.
And they'd have to, actually. They'd
True.
apply every year for the exemption. It's not
True, but if they don't apply for it, they could lose it, you know, so that's the thing. Okay.
But if they already were in the middle of the exemption, they would already be on target to be filing for that exemption on a regular basis, just where they fit in the
Right, they would
range.
slide to a different spot.
And again, this is not changed for 13 years.
Okay, if you figured it out, yeah.
You did the math, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a long time to remain,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
that
static
level.
like that. And,
Absolutely.
Kind of like Social Security's rate had been down
well,
for
yeah, but it was,
Right.
but it's been going up, and
now, right? It'll push people out. By making more money, we take some money away from them.
there you go. Isn't that the way?
Right. Right,
Yeah.
so there is the existing scale and the proposed one for next year.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Okay, it's time for our student representatives report.
Okay, so basically, we've had midterms this week and last week, and so then that just like wrapped up our quarter. During that week where we had midterms, and the end of the quarter is this Friday, next Friday. I think it's next Friday. Our seniors from last year were coming to visit since they've been home from college, so we had a meeting with all the seniors, and they've kind of given their insight of how college goes and helped us to kind of track out how we need to budget our money and kind of get ready to be leaving and prepare ourselves for the real world and get out of the comfort of Putnam Valley and our nice little circle that we live in. Winter concerts for both the band and chorus are completed, so that was really nice. That's kind of been a really nice way for everyone to decompress and like end their days and wrap up the end of the quarter. Yeah, Christian?
Yeah, continuing on, we've had some exciting events happen on the athletic side of things. We've had quite a few seniors begin to commit to play at the next level, which is very exciting to see. All our winter sports teams have picked up some nice wins and are continuing to rally on for sectional play, which will start to come in February, which is exciting. And we ask for people to continue to give their support and come spectate. On the academic side of things, again, with some of our upperclassmen, we're beginning to commit to colleges, which is exciting to see. We have some of our National Honor Society inductions coming up as soon as at the end of the month and at February, and we'd love to see some support at those to welcome some of our lower and upperclassmen into the honor societies. And on March 10th, the Student Council is planning to host our winter formal, which is exciting. We hope to have it here, and we're currently looking for some PTA support to help make it a fun event for access to all the students in the high school. And that is some of the more exciting things that are happening in the high school currently this winter. So.
Last Friday, I believe it was last Friday, me, Sierra Gabriel, another representative on the Student Council, and Dr. Letitia Payne, we were able to go to Ossining High School and see a documentary screening of Defining Us, directed, I believe, by Paul Forbes. And it was very, very insightful and very powerful documentary to see I definitely enjoyed my time. It was definitely, it's described as it's for youth and for educators to engage in preparing to engage in constructive conversations that build critical thinking skills to help crucial issues in schools and education systems. And I definitely think it would be a great thing to bring to our district, whether it's for, I think, the students or just the faculty. I think it's really insightful, and I think it'll be great to utilize to kind of bring those very necessary conversations that were discussed in the documentary into our district. And yeah, I think we, as a district culture, we do a good job of encouraging our students to speak up and stuff like that. And I think this will be another way to encourage our students and even our faculty to get involved in having meaningful conversations that I think will mean a lot to different groups and different communities within our town.
Great.
That's all.
Okay, Dr. Luff?
Sure.
So prior to this meeting, I had the luxury of not being luxury. Well, it was a luxury because it wasn't me and standing in the front. The ability to attend a listening hour facilitated by Mr. Mello. I was actually very excited. I thought it was very well attended compared to what we typically see. And I thought parents were asking very insightful questions regarding our IB program, the community lunch, clubs, science research, transportation. I had answered the transportation question. But I think it's a terrific format, and I think that everyone left there feeling as if their questions were answered and their time was valued. So I do want to thank Mr. Mello and all the parents who attended this evening for making that a successful event. So yes, it was a luxury not sitting in the front. I got to hide in the back. As referenced in my communication earlier this week, I'm very excited to be recommending that the Board of Education appoint Mr. Mello as our probationary high school principal, removing the interim title, Dr. Letitia Payne as our assistant principal here in the high school, and Mrs. Jamie Zecca as the assistant principal in the middle school. So I think all three have demonstrated tremendous knowledge, experience, abilities to build relationships, and really I could not be more proud of the jobs that they've done since taking on those interim titles, accepting new challenges and new roles with very little notice. So I am eager to recommend them before the board for those appointments. As the students have referenced, we had several events. Our elementary school sing-along, which was scheduled from before the holidays to right afterwards. I don't know if any of you remember sitting there doing the sing-along, but it is definitely one of the highlights of the year to have 600 kids. I've noticed post-holidays, there's more singing, pre-holidays, more screaming, I think just based upon the excitement in the room. But it's a wonderful event, and I was glad we were able to get it in. Our high school chorus and band concerts took place this week and last, and again, it's always wonderful to see our students in action. Several more very exciting meetings. We met with the PTA Executive Board. Some of the topics of discussion were transportation, communication, and budget. Facilitated a principals meeting. We discussed primarily staffing and upcoming budget. Professional learning sessions in each of our buildings. Our admin meeting, we had BOCES representatives come in and discuss safety, security training. We did a budget update, HR, and curriculum instruction. I've attended 2 different superintendents' council meetings. One was the NISCUS update, which focused really on upcoming state aid and legislative priorities. And then this morning, local superintendents meeting discussing many of the same items. And obviously our ongoing budget review is underway. From collective bargaining, we have an upcoming mediation session with the teachers union on Tuesday, January 24th. And our work continues to be productive with the CSEA ongoing. Actually, our next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I did want to recognize the alumni visit. I know that's always a highlight of the high school students every year. Kudos to those alumni who came back and committed the time to come in and speak with students. And I think it's always an eye-opening experience for our current high school seniors to hear from their friends who are just now halfway through their first year in college. A couple upcoming events. We have our junior parent night at the high school on 1/25, beginning on 6:30, and our Science National Honor Society on Tuesday, January 31st. That's it. Thank you.
Dr. Love, since you teased it, I have a question. As we kind of unfold and unroll or unpack or whatever the IB program throughout the district, down to into the middle years program, and I'd imagine that middle years program will then bubble north and south to go into a primary program, and also the 9th and 10th, which is actually technically part of the middle years program. I've done a little bit of, not necessarily research, but looking around, and I found a couple of articles that there's the 4th program, which is the career-related program, which seems to be unique enough that it would tap into a different type of student, that I wonder if that's on the radar for either phase 3 or phase 4, and I'm not expecting that it happens right away, but it seems to be, if we have enough students to be able to pull that program off, to be an additional separator for what Putnam Valley is to the community, but also identify and connect with students that would not necessarily find their way into one of the other programs.
Certainly. So there's actually already been conversations regarding that over the past several years, the feasibility of implementing such a program, which I think will remain on our radar and a topic of conversation. I know sort of the next 2 phases are our middle school is now a candidacy school. We submitted our application and they're working through that process. Our high school, the 9th and 10th grade teachers will be entering sort of the feasibility phase. So they're sort of trailing behind the middle school by at least a year or so. And those are sort of where our priorities are right now. But once those are implemented and we have more of a footing in the DP program, and we start having conversations whether we go primary as your program or the CP program at the high school, those are certainly conversations that we'll have. But it's a program we're aware of. It's a program we've begin to explore. I think one of my concerns is, again, you have a limited number of students, and how many different programs can our enrollment support simultaneously without competing with each other. But it's certainly something of interest, and you're right, the hope would be it would target maybe a different group of students. But looking at Mr. Mello, if he has anything else enlightening to say about the careers program.
I like to be good at what we do. If we're great at what we do, we have talked about it. It's definitely been a conversation that I know Jackie and our diploma coordinators have talked as well.
Yes, it is definitely something that we have spoken about. What the coordinators, Vin DiGregorio, namely, has one of the first conversations he and I had was about the career program last year. And given my BOCES background and my understanding of the career and tech world, I definitely see a lot of potential for a couple of career programs once we are settled in our DP and receive our evaluation, a successful evaluation in, I think it's 2025? Well, the timeline begins next spring, and then, right. So we'll get that settled, and then we'll begin exploring the potential that we know is there.
Thank you.
Okay.
I wouldn't have brought it up, except that you brought it up. So.
Fair enough.
Okay, we're going to move to new business. Item 1, please.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints Matthew Mello, who possesses a professional school building leader certificate, to the position of Putnam Valley High School principal to serve a 4-year probationary term in the high school principal tenure area, effective August 30th, 2022 through August 29th, 2026, subject to receipt of 3 out of 4 years of effective or highly effective overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to Education Law 3012D, and no ineffective ratings during the final year of probation.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution passes. Congratulations, Matt.
Hey, great job.
Welcome back.
I was only going to say that Mr. Mello was here this evening and joined by his wife, who I'm sure is well deserving of a fine dinner following tonight.
A late dinner.
Okay, number 2, please.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of the schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints Dr. Letitia Payne, who possesses an initial school building leader certificate, to the position of Putnam Valley High School Assistant Principal to serve a 4-year probationary term in a high school assistant principal 10-year area, effective August 30th, 2022 through August 29th, 2026.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. Congratulations, Letitia.
Yes.
Number 3, please.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby appoints Jamie Zecca, who possesses an initial school building leader certificate, to the position of Putnam Valley Middle School Assistant Principal to serve a 4-year probationary term in the middle school Assistant Principal tenure area, effective September 1st of 2022 through August 31st of 2026.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes, and welcome, Jamie, and congratulations. Number 4, please.
Resolved on the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools to appoint Jonathan Aguilera to a probationary appointment of school monitor effective January 20, 2023, with a probationary period of 52 weeks, January 19th, 2024, at the elementary school on Step 1 of the CSEA salary schedule.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. Number 5, please.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Fidilka Rukovac to a probationary appointment of cleaner effective January 23rd, 2023, with a probationary period of 52 weeks, January 22nd, 2024, at the Operations Department Elementary School on Step 1 of the CSEA salary schedule.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. Number 6, please.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the 2023-24 district calendars per document 12823 attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution passes. That's excellent. So, public comment on any topic? Oh, no, okay.
Okay.
Upcoming meeting topics?
So for our next meeting, we have our final budget presentation. So that will be our facilities operations presentation, as well as our special education presentation. And then following that, on March 2nd, will be our first full budget presentation. And the teaser for the 16th will be our second time going through the full budget presentation.
Okay, and if we had a public hearing, we might have it before the business meeting on February 9th?
That's the plan. We need to give 5 days' notice, publish something in the paper, do all that good stuff. So the
Okay.
plan would be to hold the hearing immediately before the business meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tonight, there was a question regarding test results for AP and IB. Can we add that in our future agenda items to discuss results of our schools?
We're actually Jackie's working on a comprehensive assessments presentation that we're going to schedule in the near future. So not just AP and IB, but middle school, elementary school, looking at all our assessments.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, board member comments.
This is the last time I'll mention this item. I want to bring closure to it one way or the other. At the last meeting, I had asked everybody to consider that letter to the state, asking them not to pass any type of legislation concerning that COVID vaccine. I again bring that forward to the board and ask you, are we going to go forward or no? I just would like to bring closure to it. If not, I understand. But again, I feel the state has often overstepped their bounds on so many issues. And I'll restate what I said the last time. They practically destroyed the educational system by doing the madness that they did during that whole COVID pandemic, closing schools down. And that leads me to a second topic, but I'd like to resolve this first. They would be totally wrong on making this a mandated vaccine. They do not do it for the flu. They do not do it for pneumonia. They did not do it for the bird flu, which killed an astronomical amount of people in this country when it first occurred back in the early 2000s. And so, you know, I'm asking the board, and by the way, a couple of districts within Putnam County have already done this, to just send a letter, the short little letter that I gave you. We could copy that, just stating that we feel it's a divisive issue and that we ask the state not to move forward on any type of legislation. I would like to see that done. And again, I just speak for myself.
See, I'm glad you brought it back up again.
And this will be the last time I'll ever mention it. You have my word on that.
And I'm not saying that in a sarcastic way. I think, you know, it's a, I shouldn't say it's a delicate balance because it's really, it's not. I don't think, from my point of view, and we've made this decision once before about public health, and that the idea that we tip our toes in making those public health decisions. I think our opinion, whatever we want to make it to be, I just don't. It's not a position that I'm comfortable in making.
And I accept that. I understand that, Joe. I do. You know, from my own opinion, you know, as I've stated before, we're not saying to outlaw the vaccine again. I have had every booster, and I'm due for another booster next month. I get them every 6 months because I believe the vaccine it does prevent stuff. And I think most parents should have their child vaccinated, but I don't believe the state has the authority now, you know, to choose one over the other. Well, we'll say that this is okay to have the vaccine, but this one isn't. You know, and that's what they've done with the flu and pneumonia and all that. We have those vaccines, but they don't mandate them. So to try to mandate the COVID, it just hits me the wrong way. And, you know, that's my own personal opinion. But I understand and I appreciate your opinion as well.
And Sam, to go along with what both of you have said, it's not that, I'm not saying that you should never bring it up again because it is a discussion. I think even if we don't decide on it tonight, that maybe in the future we will have this discussion again. So it's
Right.
not
We
off the
don't know.
table,
Yeah.
but it's just something that, like, I know there has been other letters in Putnam County. I have not read those letters, so it's hard for me to say, like that letter that you provided a couple of weeks ago, there were some statements in there that I had challenges with. And so, you know, maybe there would be something we could all agree on, but at this point, I'd have to see what that looks like. So.
Again.
So.
And I have to say, if I look back at almost 30 years of coming to board meetings, I have yet to see the district take a position that denied parental rights. I think that Putnam Valley's gone out of its way to be respectful and encouraging of parental opinions, parental input, respectful of their, whether it's, I don't want my children to have access to this book or whatever it is, we have found a way to be respectful of parental opinions. And I don't see the need to write a letter that says that, because that's been our practice all along. So to me, this is just the whole discussion and the tenor of some of the emails and stuff has been uncomfortable and unsettling and divisive about an issue which is a non-issue.
For us, and I agree with you, Barbara, it is not Putnam Valley's view that we mandate the COVID vaccine, but it is the state. And there are times districts have to stand up to that bureaucracy. They are not always right. The Board of Regents has vacillated on so many issues over the years as an educator. Take math, for example. How many phases and different platforms of mathematics were presented in my 30 years, 35 years in education? Every other year they would change. Math A, Math B. No, we're going back to whole math. No, let's go back to algebra and trigonometry. No, let's reverse that. They don't know what they're doing. They're paid up there to just make these mandates without, I think, second thought. I really do not care much for the bureaucrats who sit up in Albany in their ivory towers when we deal with our parents and their children in our district. And we have to watch out for them. So there are no aspersions put on Putnam Valley. What I'm saying is that I don't trust the state. So if we can do anything to prevent the state from making some whacked out law that will affect our parents and our kids, then we should go follow that and do it. I mean, again, that's my own personal opinion, and I accept everybody else's explanation here. But again, I want to make it clear, this is not a Putnam Valley thing. This is a state thing. And that's what I'm rallying against, because I've seen the state fall flat on their face with so many educational decisions. I do not trust their judgment, and that is the truth of it.
Well, and in some ways it makes me sad, just because I am a product of the government, I mean.
So am I. I was a soldier.
Yep, and I was a brat for, most of my life. I disagree. I think learning is always evolving. And I think it's exciting when you look at something and say, you know what, this isn't working, let's try this. Well, this isn't working, so then let's try this. I'd rather that than I be taught exactly the way my mother and father were taught. To me, it's not that the people in Albany don't know what they're doing, it's that the people are trying to do the best thing, and when you get new information and new ideas that sound like that they'll work, it makes sense, you try it. If it doesn't work, you adjust. I mean, we try to teach our students to adjust all the time. So to me, it's not like anything that comes out of the state is like bad, because they're all up there just, I don't know, eating bonbons and trying to say, now how can we mess with Putnam Valley or students in New York State? And I don't want parents and community members to feel like the people in the state ed department are out to subvert students. I don't feel that way. And it gives me that sense that it's just because I don't trust Albany. I don't know.
Well, I don't feel they're always correct.
Well,
that's
no,
all I'm saying.
They're not, and I'm not, and we're not.
When they're not, we need to take a stand and say, wait a minute, that's
and
wrong.
if they were to say, you have to do this, and without thinking, we've pushed back on electric, but we've pushed back on a lot of things that we say, we can't do that if you tell us we have to do this. We need more help, we need more whatever, we need more information, and we advocate for that. But this is not an issue that I think we need to advocate.
Okay.
Anyway.
Like I said, I'm good with that.
And I've never seen Fran eat a bonbon. Fran Wills. I've never seen her eat a bonbon.
Well, I don't know if I'd include, Fran's a new member up there, so we'll exclude her from that, from any of those aspersions.
I don't know.
I just want to clarify, I was actually at a meeting with one of the regents, I'll say, recently,
Who shall remain nameless.
where there's proposals coming through this state that I, as a school superintendent, wholeheartedly disagreed with, and it really led to a long debate back and forth philosophically as to what is best for school districts. And without going into all the details of it, I don't want it to think that we just sort of complacently take whatever comes our way without pushing back on what we think is right for students. And I think for me, the key factor here is it was an educational issue. And not an issue that I deem to be a public health issue. And that's why I am more than willing, as are the professional organizations I belong to push back on educational issues that we believe are bad for students. I think the one differentiating factor here is that many believe this is not an educational issue, but a public health issue. And I feel much less strong or even empowered to push back on with public health officials, because that's not what I do for a living. But certainly there is plenty of pushing back towards Albany that occurs both individually and through professional organizations to ensure that we're looking out for the best interests of our students. So that definitely occurs.
And I appreciate that, Dr. Love. Yeah, and the other topic I wanted to bring up, it leads to this. Because of the pandemic and some of the restrictions put, the chorus and band programs, and by the way, the chorus and band concert, both of which I attended, were outstanding. Both gentlemen, Dr. Macera, Ryan Odell, put together the great performances, just so impressive. But both individuals stated, and especially Ryan the other night, that because of the pandemic, they have lost so many key members and individuals due to the whole Zoom, creation, lost the opportunity to recruit new members. And what I would love to see is more of our young people getting involved in the arts, and especially the music area, the chorus and the band. And I don't know what path the district would take to do that. I know so many areas were banged by the pandemic, and that's what I was referring to about mistakes that the state made. But neither here nor there. The issue is, I saw the chorus, and it was half the size, almost, just about, of previous years. And that broke my heart because I love the music. It's one of the greatest things that come out of Putnam Valley is our arts. We are so deep into that, and we do such a superb job at theater works, the band, the chorus, our drawings, our paintings, all the arts. If there's a way to recruit more young people into the chorus or the band, I would love to see that, especially trombones and trumpet players, according to Ryan. There's a real shortage in both areas, so.
Careful what you wish
I'll
for.
defer to his colleagues to stress the importance of those instruments for the younger students. I was thinking the same thing, having left the concert last night, and I'm certainly willing to go pull the numbers and see what they're like. My sense is it's more of an attrition issue than an interest issue.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm trying to do the math, it's probably the same group of students that are now that they lost. But at one point, our fourth grade class, I think there was under 5 students in the entire grade that were not playing an instrument, which is
You see, that's what I remember,
So,
right, yeah.
So I'm sure we lose some of those students along the way from fourth grade moving up. But my sense is that we have a strong program, we have really strong teachers, and that it'll build itself back up, right? As those fourth grade students move up to fifth and into the middle school, and minus another pandemic, which I can't handle.
God forbid.
God
forbid me.
But, sometimes I wonder, for, like, if I think back to high school, 100 years ago, but no. The arts, music and art, were one of the few places that you had some student voice, some creativity, some individuality.
Right.
But now I'm seeing that in English.
Yes.
In the books you can choose,
that is
or
true.
in science, in the topic you want to study, or, in so many other ways, students are given that kind of creative voice. And it's not that they don't need music in the arts, I still think they do, and I think that those are really important, but I also think that students are finding those outlets outside of that very closed
There's
group
just
of
something
subjects. I
really
don't know.
special about.
It is. I love the
A youngster
music.
just standing up there and, singing.
But did you see the fourth grade poet laureate read his poem at the Hochul's inauguration? Standing on his tiptoes so his head came over
Yeah, I know.
the top of the podium. Fourth grade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing to watch kids perform at whatever level.
I agree.
No, I wonder if, while pandemic obviously probably played a part, I wonder if it's a side effect of IB.
I was going to ask that question.
If there's that much intensity put into IB.
That there's not room
that
for that.
that students feel that they need to put their time, or the period, the way it gets things
Yeah, I
get
think the scheduling.
scheduled,
God, I hope
kind of
not.
conflict where they feel that they need the extra time because of the intensity of the program itself. Obviously, some do both, but I don't know if, that was also probably the case with science research being as intense as it is, changes what students take. So I don't know if we can identify a correlation or not, but, my gut says maybe there's some of that. I don't know.
I think
Emily,
we could probably safely say that it's not that, because the smallest numbers we saw were amongst the 9th grade concert chorus and 9th grade concert band, and those students are
That's
not
true.
yet enrolled in any IB courses.
That is true.
I
Go
think
ahead, Em.
if we looked grade level by grade level, our lowest participation is
at
9th
the
grade,
lower
then
grade.
10th. I think 11th and 12th graders who are already invested in band
So it's
persevered
transition.
through the
Right.
pandemic, where middle school students, the attrition rate was probably much higher. Do you agree or disagree?
So I have to appreciate all of your interest in the arts because I am the Tri-M vice president, so it means a lot to me. But I just wanted to reassure you that we recognize how little is coming through, and it's not just the concert band is bigger than the wind ensemble at this point, but it's really, we're focusing on the 5th and 6th graders and trying to get them more involved because they were worried about our numbers of enrollment. Like Mr. Odell said, we only have one trumpet player that will remain in the wind ensemble. So we're trying to get 5th graders to come over, or we go there and just find a day where we can show them how enthralling it is and how nice it is to have a break from your hard IB courses and your schedule to just sit down and relax yourself with playing your instrument, which is something that we all love to do. So we are figuring that out. I do have to say that it is difficult to find the time in your schedule, especially if you want to take electives, but that's just a part of how much you love playing your instrument. And I have to say that some of my friends that haven't been able to take band anymore because of their IB schedule and their science research schedule have taken to IB music, which actually allows them to play more instruments because you need to submit samples of playing your instrument. So they not only do they play the instrument that they played in band and keep up with that kind of connection to the arts, but they also learn piano or learn guitar, which is learn how to write music and then play their own music, which is an amazing part of the IB program that we get to explore.
I love the idea that you're, the juniors, seniors, the older students in our district are looking to recruit these younger kids. That's the way to do it because they look up to you. They really do. And, to tell them, listen, this is a great path to follow. I think that's outstanding.
Yeah.
I just also want to add, and thank you for adding that information, and please invite me when you do have the students come up to the high school. I'd love to be there. But the beauty of the IB program is how it creates the equal ground of all the subject areas. So music is part of the arts, which are group 6, and there's an emphasis. So all the way up from MYP through to the DP program, there is an emphasis on the arts being an integral part of the program for a child. So it is, I think, possible we'll actually see an increase in our music enrollment because of the emphasis as part of the curriculum that the arts take place.
Yeah,
So
excellent.
I also want to mention that we had 5th and 6th grade come over and watch rehearsal for our concert in the PAC. And I'm not sure what they were doing, but I'm pretty sure that they had to like say how many they had to be doing some kind of work to keep them, you know, their teacher was helping us play on stage actually, so they had to be kind of engaged in something, and they were like, you know, learning about the instruments, and they were coming up to the percussionists that like maybe didn't have a part in that song or like weren't playing at that time, and they were like asking them questions, which I think is just a great thing.
I should also add, I'm sorry, Dr. Luft, but as we are looking ahead to next year's schedule, currently Mike Soprano, who's one of our music teachers, teaches an SEL class to 5th grade. And we've examined the schedule and recognized that SEL is also part of Kendall Coleman's push-in activities she does as guidance. So I've asked Mr. McCarty to look more carefully at the schedule and see if we can't make that 5th grade class a continuing music class for our 5th graders, so we can continue pulling the thread through in general music to continue to inspire the interest in the arts.
Excellent.
Okay. Any other board member comments? I will say almost everybody should have gotten an invitation to the Capitol Conference, February 10th. It's a virtual conference. I wrote 9 to 12:30, but then I saw something else today that said 8:30 to 12:45, so I know it's hard for Jeanette because she's working. But you will be able to hear from all of the legislators. I think it would be a really good thing if you could sign up and attend virtually. Jeremy mentioned the junior parent night. The 4th grade winter concert is January 26th at 7 o'clock. It's always great, chorus and band. Science Honor Society induction is coming up January 31st. Kindergarten Chinese New Year, February 1st. And then a parent workshop February 2nd on working with anxiety. I'm going to go. That will help. And then English Honor Society on February 7th. So we do have a lot of stuff coming up. So, you know, if you can make it, it would be great to see those kids in action.
Yes.
Anything else? No? Okay. I'd like a motion to convene an executive session for, wait a minute, 2 matters of collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, and 2 matters of the employment history of 2 particular persons.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There will be no business conducted afterwards. Thank you, and good night.